Hello, welcome to Take Time Thursday. My name is Janelle Cooper. I work in the education department and as well as the special events department at the Smithsonian's Anacostia Community Museum. We are talking about rest, refresh, and replenish, discovering new opportunities with Ifeoma Iffy Ibekwe. Take Time Thursdays with the Anacostia Community Museum gives participants a chance to take time for wellness, health, and creativity with artists, thought leaders, performers, wellness practitioners, and others. Take Time Thursdays asks you to take just a 30-minute break with us from 2:30 to 3 each Thursday to boost your mind, body, and spirit. Today's guest speaker, um, uh, Iffy Ibekwe is the principal attorney at Ibekwe Law, PLLC. She believes that every woman deserves to make decisions that affect her with wills, trust, and other estate planning documents. She emboldens women, and she is also passionate about speaking about entrepreneurship and supporting other women lawyers who desire to practice estate planning law. Iffy graduated from the University of Texas at Austin, undergrad and law school, and has practiced law for 13 years. She is the board president for Be the Bridge, a national nonprofit dedicated to racial justice and reconciliation. When she's not spending time with her remarkable husband and four spirited children, Iffy runs her signature We Read Her book club, which focuses on the study and discussion of literature authored by women of color. We will give the rules of engagement now. We will take questions after her presentation in the chat or the Q&A box. And now, without further ado, I present to you Ifeoma Iffy Ibekwe. Take it away, Iffy.
Thank you, Janelle. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be able to speak at the Smithsonian in any capacity. And I hope that all of you out there taking a break can get something valuable after my very short presentation. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen so we can begin. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go here. All right. So this is the 24-year-old version of me. It's who I refer to as the buttoned up lawyer me. I had just graduated from law school in 2006 and I got a real job. So I needed a real photo. And, you know, this is what lawyers do. You get your suit. You definitely don't have any natural hair and you have to have it straight. And this, I thought, was the epitome of success in my life. As time went on at that job, as you can see the photo on the left, I ended up having several children and changing quite a little bit during the course of my legal career. I spent the first 11 years of my life working for other organizations and really just toiling. I was so excited that I had on-site daycare where my children could be downstairs. And if I needed to nurse a baby, I could just run down the stairs and do so, and then come back up to the office, which you will see right here on the right. And that was my outlook. It was bleak. There was a lot of work to do, and it was joyless. And that's how I spent much of my legal career after I graduated. I just thought, you know, you go to school, you get the degree, you get married, you have the children. I did everything you're supposed to do. So why am I so miserable? Why is this soulless work? I even have on-site daycare. My kids are here. And that's how I existed. At my company, there are certain things that you get as you become a seasoned employee. At 10 years, you got a fossil watch. And I had come up to my 10-year anniversary. And I just remember thinking, man, you put in 10 years and all you get is a watch. And it just was emblematic of the dinosaur, the fossil, the ancientness, the decay of what my life was becoming as somebody who was still in her early 30s. And I thought about that and I thought, you know what? I don't I don't want that life. I don't want the watch. I don't want the parking space. I don't want the 2 tickets on Southwest. I got to find something else. And I had been in my new division for 3 years and I wasn't really great at my job and I wasn't doing well at my job. So I just started looking for an out. I really just felt like I have to get out of here. I can't do this. There has to be another way for me to make a living without having to toil and be so unhappy and unfulfilled in the workplace. And so that very weekend, I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to let my boss know I'm no longer going to be in here. I'm going to put in my notice and find something else to do. And I went into work that Monday and I got fired. Mind you, I had just had my 10-year anniversary. I had just gotten my watch. I had just gotten celebrated. And all of a sudden, I'm no longer employed after 10 years at the company. And I was devastated. I actually fell into a depression where it was very hard for me to get out of bed. Thankfully, my kids were still on that on-site daycare and they were being well taken care of. And I really felt like they they could be managed without me having to do much. And I'm not a depressive type of person. I actually am very optimistic and joyful, but that was a very low period in my life. And I remember talking to some of our mentors. My husband and I have marriage mentors, and they said, "Hey, you've been on the hustle train for 11 years. Why don't you take a break?" And I remember thinking, take a break? Why on earth would I take a break? I would have a gap in my LinkedIn, right? Now that I have to find a job, what am I going to say? I took a month off when I've had no interruption unless I've been having a baby. I'm going to say I took a month off to take care of myself. And the thought of that was just absolutely off the table. But then I thought about it. Look, I had childcare, I had a severance, and I could experiment and see what else could come from this taking a break. And so I decided, you know what, I'll prove them wrong. I'm going to take such a break and they're going to see how it was such a terrible idea. And then I can come back and say, see, this is why I shouldn't take a break because all of these horrible things would happen. And so I started taking a break and I started doing things that I had never done before. I was in Austin, Texas, which is a naturally beautiful place. And I had time now in the middle of the day, and we weren't thankfully hurting for money, at least for the next couple of months. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start walking in nature. And so I started going on very long walks and just sitting by water and really enjoying myself. And I have parents who are avid gardeners, but I never would help them in the yard at all. And I didn't understand what their obsession was with being in the garden. But I thought, you know what? Let me see if I can plant something. And I started to put my hand in soil and just feel the relaxation of being in nature, getting fresh air, and doing things for the joy of growth and seeing a plant develop and just really enjoying that whole process. And I would never call myself outdoorsy, but it awakened something in me and I just had to grow more things and I had to put more things in soil and I had to put my hands and my bare feet in the soil. And so that went on for about a month. And after a month of just really prioritizing myself in a way that is very hard when you have children and when you're married and you're working, I had an aha moment, like Oprah. I love this gif of her or gif. I can't ever tell if I'm saying it correctly. And I thought, you know what? I have a calling. Like, I'm supposed to encourage women. Now, before I was a contract attorney and I was reviewing contracts from technological contracts to service contracts for printers, things that really just brought me no joy. And I thought, that's not what I'm called to do. Like, I heard it clear as a bell. This is where your life is supposed to go. And of course, the first thing I thought was, well, it's definitely not going to be in the law. I'm getting out of law. I'm not going to be a lawyer. I'm going to become an HR professional. I'm going to help people start businesses and help them with how to make sure they have all of the business plan together, and they have all of the ways to present themselves and to get the loans and whatever else they need for support. And inevitably, when I would offer that out to people, they'd say, "Oh my gosh, Iffy, that's so great, but can you do my contract?" And I was like, "No, I don't do contracts. I'm not that lawyer woman that you know of. I mean, granted, I haven't let my license lapse, but I'm not going back that way." And after this happened multiple times, my husband said, "Why don't you just see if you can get a client and see if you can encourage women that way?" And empowerment is one of those terms now that seems so cliche. When you think about empowerment, you're like, "Oh, all right, rah rah." But truly, that's what I do. And so I said, "Oh, okay, I'll prove you wrong," just like I had proved our marriage mentors wrong, that I actually am not going to be able to find anybody to hire me, right? And that was my motivation. As you can tell, this is a theme in my life, is that I'll show you. And I ended up booking a client, and she paid me. And that feeling of somebody trusting me with their legal matter and just handing money over, it was like a dopamine hit to me, and it transformed me. And that's how I became a lawyer and started working for myself as a lawyer. I shouldn't say became a lawyer, but that's when I hung up my own shingle and started working for myself. And I transformed myself from this young, impressionable woman at 24 to someone who now I can put myself out there and say, I am an avid gardener, to the point that even with my marketing for my estate planning services, I am not ashamed to bring my full self to the table, because I'm so aligned in my work right now. And I'm able to get up and I'm able to manage my day and not forfeit my home life or my children or my marriage in order to present myself as something that is actually not representative of me. I am my parents' child, and I love to put my hands in dirt, and I have a farmer's hat and desire to own a farm. And so that is truly the transformation that I made. And part of that transformation involved me having to rest and take the time to see what it is lit me up that lights me up, right? What things am I ignoring in my life that are literally the things that will give me life? And for one of those things, it was being in nature and just really enjoying the earth and not being stuck in an office all day, but really being able to be around um, creation and just seeing life all around me in its natural form as well. And so that's one of the things that is so important. And a 20-minute talk is not going to be. You can't even scratch the surface of what prioritizing rest in your life will mean to you. But I do want to leave you with this story, and with some steps that you should take, rather. The first thing that I recommend is having a vision for what your life could be. I think the pandemic has allowed a lot of us to look at how we're living and decide whether that's something that you want to continue living this way. For example, there are many people who have moved back home or moved to smaller towns or moved overseas or decided to change their jobs or their work hours because they're realizing the way I was before is not aligned with who I want to be. And so, whatever that is for you, just start writing it out. writing out some of your dreams, how you want to live, how you want your day to be structured, what you want your children to experience, whether you want to see and travel and visit the world. Do you like to put your toes in a stream? Are you a painter? Are there things that you used to do, like sing or play music, that you have suppressed now that you are this professional or someone else, and meeting expectations that others may or may not have for you? So that would be the first step. The next thing would just to be to make it really plain. You may brainstorm, but just distill what your essence is, right? Easy to say, just distill your essence, figure it out and make it in a one sentence. But truly think about what that thing is. I feel very called to encourage women. That to me is the umbrella. Everything that falls under that, whether it's in my work life or in my personal life, because they're both my life, it I feed off of that sort of interaction. And I know that about myself, and I'm very confident about that in myself. So you see that in all of what I do. And then the last thing is to find your community of people who can support you. Leaving the law in a traditional sense, and staking my own claim, and building my own destiny is something that a lot of lawyers will describe themselves as risk averse. They don't like the change. You're supposed to go to school, get the degree, pass the bar exam, and be a lawyer. No lawyer is happy. Why would you expect that? But you are secure, and you have the money, and you have golden handcuffs, and you have the lifestyle. So that should be enough, right? Well, in our community of lawyers, you find a lot of people are depressed, or they struggle with alcoholism, and we have a very high suicide rate because there's such um, a lack of community when it comes to life and balance. And so within whatever you're doing, find a community of like-minded people, probably online because of COVID. But even then, people who think like you, who can support you and affirm you in a pivot, or, that's the most overused words these days, but who can support you in any changes that you're making. Because you may not find that in your family, you may not find that in your friends or your current colleagues, but there are people out there who will support you. I'll leave you with this story. And there's a book written by a palliative nurse in Australia. Her name is Bronnie Ware, and she spent um, 2 weeks to 2 months of the last 2 weeks to 2 months of people's lives as they died, and started recording the sorts of things that they said when they were dying. And she calls it the top 5 regrets of the dying. And it's very popular, and I recommend um, Googling it after this presentation. But the top 5 things that the dying said is that they wish they had the courage to live a life true to themselves and not the life others expected of them. They wish they hadn't worked so hard. They wish they had the courage to express their feelings. They wish they'd stayed in touch with their friends. And they wish that they'd let themselves be happier. These 5 regrets are things that we don't have to make that choice. We don't have to make that choice to have one of these as our regrets, because we're all going to die, and we want to have lives that feel fulfilled, living without regret. Sometimes it takes a pause in your life to be able to find what those things are that will allow you to experience joy and live true to yourself, and not care about the expectations that others have for you. So I want to leave you with that today from me, a lawyer who is in estate planning. So you could call me a death lawyer, because I deal with life and death in my practice. You don't want to have any of these regrets on when you're passing away. You want to feel like you have lived a full life and that you've done a job well. And so I leave you with that. I don't want you thinking about me on my deathbed and thinking, oh, she was right. Iffy told me I needed to live my life. So I hope that you take that away today, and that you really thrive in everything that you do. Thank you.
Iffy, words to live by. As we're in this pandemic, I'm constantly trying to figure out how to reinvent myself, for this next chapter of my life. And, how do I follow my dreams, and how do I turn my talents and my gifts. How can I make them make room for me, right?
Right.
To provide maybe some extra capital, some extra ends in my house. And the young people are good with it. Like I'm learning to
They
talk to
are.
young folk, because they'll flip it, and I often say, do I have the energy to do all of this? Do I, it's a million and one excuses why I'm not stepping into that role and just like doing it. So I'm taking baby steps. So how do you get out of that dead head space? A lot of us are working at home, we're on the computers all day, you know. And I've been talking to a lot of people recently, most recently my sister and my best friend, and we've been talking about this thing called deadhead. That we're getting because we're constantly like robots on this daggone computer, no human
Right.
interaction. And you have these dead spaces where it's like, I know that I just did something and I was like, I can't remember if I did it. Like, what the
Right.
heck? And I thought maybe, I was like, dang, am I early dementia on, early onset dementia? I said, what's going on? And then I realized I wasn't the only person dealing with this. How do we overcome like that dead head space to kind of keep our goals and dreams, and how do we get to the point where we can actually write the vision down and make it plain?
Right. I think that you have to make a conscious effort to get up and push yourself away from the screen. And I can give you what I do. And I feel like my life is packed full of people, and I'm always trying to find time away. And there are lots of people who might be listening who don't have people around and are lonely, right? And just because you have people around doesn't mean that you're not lonely. But one thing I have started building into my day, I build in breaks. And so for some of us working or who have other obligations that people can get on your calendar, I block off time, and I know I'm not taking calls. I'm not doing anything work related, and I have to leave this office room. It's in my house now, but I have to leave. And so that could be going on a walk. That could just be going outside because the weather's so beautiful. I'm just going to sit there and just enjoy my lunch outside for 30 minutes. That could be going and picking up the phone and scheduling a phone call date with a friend that I haven't spoken to in a long time. Whatever that is for you, whatever fills you up. I've started watching a show called High Fidelity on Hulu. And so sometimes my break is watching an episode of High Fidelity and letting that be how I connect with myself and find joy. And so I would say things like that, like giving yourself the space to leave and find other things to do. That's one way I would do that. Can you hear me?
Hold on just one second. Janelle got disconnected. She's
Oh,
her
I
computer.
was
She called
wondering
me
if
on the
it was
phone.
me.
No, you
Okay.
were nope. You were going along fine. Uh, give me just one second.
Sure.
Sure. Absolutely. I noticed we have some students in attendance
Oh,
from
wonderful.
HACC. Or is that familiar to you?
No.
Oh,
HACC.
HAC, or sorry, HACC.edu. Well, if you folks have any particular, it's Harrisburg Area Community College. So somehow they got hooked into this and
Nice.
wanted to hear some of your wisdom. So what are things like as a professional at home and having to also entertain and enrich your kids' lives? How are you managing that throughout the day?
Yeah. One thing, my children were at home. I had a baby March of 2020, one week before there was lockdown in Austin. And so I have been at home with a newborn who's almost one, because it's truly, she's turning one on Monday, and a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 7-year-old for the last year. And I would not be able to do what I do unless I had support. And so of course, my biggest support is my husband, in that he's an entrepreneur as well. And we both work from home. And for example, right now I'm filming this, but they've gone on a walk or they've gone somewhere. I don't know where they are, but this is how I get quiet. And so we really tag team, and we've scheduled our life in such a way that I can work in the mornings and he can work in the afternoons to the evenings. And then we kind of swap our kids that way. And that's what we've done. And it's been very hard not having playgrounds, not having places for them to go. But thankfully, we have a really nice backyard, and it has been mostly warm in the South until we had like the snowvid or snowmageddon that many of you saw. And so that has been one way that we've done it, is just putting them outside. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of television. So that's how you cope when you don't have kids who are all in school. Only my 7-year-old is in school right now. So, and that's a very truncated day because it's just 2 hours of virtual learning. But that's how we've managed to make it work. And we just got used to it. So it's not a big deal anymore.
And with regard to your business and the changes in face to face and so forth, did you have to approach your business in a new way, or what was
Yes.
that?
Yeah, so we had to pivot. We do wills and trusts. So people come in and they sign documents, not as much as when you buy a house, but pretty close. And so it's a lot of helping people know where to sign and letting them know what things mean. And we changed our whole protocol and made it such that you have to now drive up, and we have a curbside procedure, and we have the mask requirement and glove requirements, and um, everything is done in the comfort of one's car. And instead of interacting with two witnesses and a notary, they interact with one person from my staff who will come to their window with a clipboard, sign what they need, leave with their documents. We've taken away a lot of the pomp and circumstance of the celebration that we would do when we were inside, just to make sure that our clients are safe and that they are also getting these documents that could protect them for health reasons in a timely and safe manner. But yeah, part of that was rewriting how we did it and explaining that to clients who, I mean, I didn't have anybody have pushback on that. So it was a great process. But just having that heart to say, you know what, it's not comfortable, but we're going to have to change some things up, and then following through and doing it, that will always serve you in life.
Have you found that people are more or less focused on the sort of planning that you provide, faced with COVID and faced with more mortality issues and so forth? Is it making them hide, or is it bringing them out and making them pay attention to those things in their life that they need to
I
plan?
think it's bringing out people. Business is definitely up with COVID because I've had clients lose both their parents within 25 minutes of each other. So it's not just business for business sake, but it truly is like we get protective documents so that, God forbid, if someone gets sick, they have their health directives written and they have their estate sorted out, and they're not leaving behind a mess. And I think this sort of thing really brings that to the forefront. And a lot of people are coming in with that intentionality of saying, this just happened to me. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. I would like to get my affairs in order. So it's been great for that purpose.
Well, as we're drawing to the end, for folks who are having trouble finding that spark when they're in the midst of all this, you mentioned some of the things that are important to you. What are the highlights, the most important things that you think about when you start to perhaps go towards a dark place to get yourself back, you get your mind right again?
Yeah, and that happens. I'll give you an example. February was a tough month because my clients are in Texas and my business is in Texas, and there was a horrible ice. I don't even know what to just call it, an ice storm, but a national disaster, a statewide disaster with led to all my clients and perspectives canceling for, an extended period, over a week, of not having any new business coming in. And that's the oil that runs the machine of my business, is new people coming in. And that was a devastation. But I think just having a mindset that this too shall pass, and this is just a temporary hiccup, and it's not outside of, it's not within my control. All I can control is how I am perceiving what is happening, and really asking myself, are my emotions facts? Because I can get very emotional about, oh, it's not, woe is me. I'm just like, oh, it's not working. Why am I doing this? But I have to catch that and say, oh my gosh, look at how far you've come. Look at the people that want to come in every day and work for you. I have a staff to support and families that I support. And it's so much more than just like me and my ego at this point. It really is a responsibility to the people who not only have hired me, but the people who also work with me. And so I always have to remind myself of that. And that helps me put it in a perspective where this is not just about me. It really does serve a greater purpose. And that really lights me up and keeps me motivated.
Well,
But I am generally motivated.
it is amazing to see you maintain this glow while you
Oh,
actually have so many people standing on your shoulders, and so many other people who rely on you for both your clients and your staff. It's inspiring to see this
thank you.
not weighing you down, and that you found a way to work beyond that. So thank you for spending this time with us, and thank everyone else who had the opportunity to partake in this half hour of knowledge and advice. And for folks who, if you could take a moment when this event ends, there's gonna be a questionnaire that comes up. We use that to help us plan towards the future. I wanna thank you very much for being with us this afternoon and sharing the joy that you found in your new expression of your both your life and your career.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.